Craig the Marketing Apprentice here. Are you looking for a fresh perspective on running a business? Are you starting your own, or yours is just going through a rocky patch? Well, Lee, the MD for VaporClean, brings you the Herding Cats podcast to give you not just his own experiences, but experiences of his team and clients he's worked with. Today, though, Lee will be sharing his own personal experiences, some of the better moments,
We've cleaned in excess of
some of the not so great moments.
quite often got into fights and all sorts, and
Some might say he goes a little bit too deep into his experiences as an MD.
I've been kicked out. I don't know where I'm going to stay.
All that and more on episode 1 of the Herding Cats podcast. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Before we dive into the podcast, I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsors, which is VaporClean Commercial Cleaning Services. VaporClean provides commercial contract cleaning throughout the Southwest. If you run a business with premises that need cleaning on a daily basis, then we can provide that service for you regularly, sufficiently, and consistently to the highest standard. We provide trained professional operatives that are audited and supported the right way, making sure you have the highest standards all year round. So if you want to know more, get in touch. But for now, back to the podcast. Leadership, herding cats. That's what it's all about sometimes, and that's certainly what it can feel like. That's why we're going to dive in to the true perspective of what it's really like of being a leader or a manager on the front line. Welcome to episode 1 of the Leadership Equals Herding Cats podcast. It's been a long time coming, something that I've wanted to do for a while. It's just getting organised, getting things right, and having the right time to make sure we can deliver something of value to you, the listeners or viewers, if you're catching us over on our YouTube or other socials. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different to what future episodes will be like. It will be more of me giving an overview of what the podcast will be like, but also why potentially you may want to listen to me in particular. I'm not a coach, I'm not a guru or any of those other things. I am a business owner, a manager, a leader of people, and it's something that I feel can be of benefit to those people that are in those roles. And that's the point of this podcast, to deliver some value to you, whether you're gearing up to step into a management role or in one at the moment, and you'd like to know that you're not alone. You're not the only one there doing what you do, feeling the way you feel, and going through the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis. Going forward, we'll have various guests on the actual podcast. It won't just be me. You're going to meet some of the VaporClean team, and you'll also meet some of the people from outside, some of the influences that I have within business, people that I know, and people that I feel are important in that sort of area. Today, it is though going to be more about me, what I do, where my experiences are, why I feel my opinion is worth listening to. Hopefully you will too. Just finishing up towards the end with some questions actually posed to me by my team. Hopefully they're not too rough because I haven't read them yet. I don't know what they are, but I have told them to try and make me squirm. I'm sure there's some questions that other people would want to know and they want to ask that they probably don't normally get to ask. So that's what we'll look to do. Before we do jump straight in though, please do give us a hand. Support us along the way. So whether you can leave us a review or a rating wherever you listen to the podcast. Give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube or any other platform. Leave a comment, tell us what we could do better, what you'd like to hear from, any questions you'd like to pose, because that can obviously form a podcast for the future. Today though, who am I? I'm Lee Keat. I am the MD of VaporClean Cleaning Services. I have been running VaporClean since it started. I was a founder. In the beginning, it was just me and my dad. When we started VaporClean, I've always been self-employed. I've had a part-time job once or twice back in the day when I was much younger, but I've always been self-employed from the get-go. When I was still at school, I always knew that I wanted to be my own boss, if you like. I wanted to run my own business. I wanted to make something of myself, and that was the way that I was always told you can do that, is by being your own boss and running your own business. Like many people say today, though, it was certainly over glamorized then, and it's a lot tougher than you first believe. Trust me, when I was 18, leaving college, it was very, very hard, and I learned a very harsh lessons straight away in the beginning. Since then, because I actually studied at college doing landscaping, I was actually a bit of a troublemaker in school. I didn't apply myself. I didn't get on with many people, and quite often got into fights and all sorts. And I'm very thankful to my dad, who actually said to me, look, you're coming with me. And he put me to work straight away at about 12 or 13. And that was it. You know, weekends, half terms, school holidays, whatever it might be, I was shoveling, I was laying turf, I was laying block paving slabs, whatever it might be. I mean, he had me driving a 7.5 ton lorry at 13, obviously where it was applicable, not on main roads. But that's where I got started, and that's how I started to learn the meaning of hard work. Did that save me at school? No, it didn't. It actually probably taught me that school wasn't right for me, but it did teach me the meaning of hard work, and that's been the cornerstone of everything I do. Is I know what hard work is, and I'm not scared of it at all in any way, shape or form. It was because my mum and dad actually that I went to college. They told me I had to go to college, I had to get an education. They were very pushy on that front. Even, you know, I said, yeah, but I know what I want to do. I want to do this. No, go to college. I'm glad they did now. I loved the time that I was at college. My qualification is absolutely useless, and I would never go back into it again. But it was the life lessons that I learned, which was important to me. And I went from that original, you know, once I left college, I started my own landscaping business. That didn't go very well at all. Summer, really, really busy. And it was just me, essentially, and the odd part-timer here and there helping out with the manual work. But that didn't go very well at all because of that fluctuation and my naivety, honestly. Then I went into another business with my dad, and then selling log cabins. We came out of that business because of the last recession. And then that's when we started looking at Vapor Clean and what we could do with vapor technology and the dry steam technology. It wasn't the original plan to end up where we are today, or to go down the road that we've gone down to today at all, which is becoming a leader, a manager of many, many people. I started out basically wanting to earn a living, working for myself and going from there. However, I soon realised you can earn a living day to day, but if anything was to happen, you've got no backup. You're trading time for money. It's just you on your own. You know, you rarely get to take a break. You know, I'd never be retiring, essentially. So, you know, that kind of leads me where we are today. My dad had to step down from the business, which I think was about 7 or 8 years ago now. We've been going 11 years. We've been going 11 years, officially 11 years. Technically it's 12 because we were running for a year before, and we rebranded and limited to Vapor Clean. And it was probably at that time when my dad retired that I realised properly that I need to push this business forward, and I need to develop it, because I'll never forget what he said to me was, Lee, don't do what I did. Don't end up working all your life and having to step down and losing time. Time's the most precious thing we have. So that's when I realised, you know what, I need to step up and I need to make this into something exactly what it could be. We knew it had potential. Year one, it snowballed overnight that we could never have imagined how quick it did. At that point, yeah, I realised we were already employing a few people, but it was a handful of people. But I realised, you know what, I need to increase this. I need to step this up. We can make this a lot better. We can make a difference. We were already making a difference, hearing from people that we employed about why it was different, what we did better, hearing from customers what we did better, why we were better, how much they appreciated it. And that's when I decided I need to sit back and actually make a decision. Where are we going with this? What we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So now I run Vapor Clean. We manage two sides of Vapor Clean, which is we have a specialist cleaning side of the business and we have our commercial contract cleaning side of the business. In total, we employ a little under 100 people and we carry out work for Mrs. Smith down the road on her house, up to Thatcher's cider, John Deere tractors, just to name a few of the larger contracts that we run. And we're very proud to do that. Our main goal, though, is to make sure we're making a difference, because the cleaning industry has so many faults and it is typically around the way people are led or are managed. And you know, I would like to be, and I've always tried to be, at the forefront of doing things different and treating them different. You know, we don't have cleaners, we have cleaning operatives, because guess what? It's not just a bit of cleaning, it is a profession. So we make sure we do things different and we make sure we look after those people. There is change happening in the industry, but more needs to be done. And we need to get on that and push that forward. And that's where I think my skills, my perspective, my experience can benefit, hopefully you, the listeners, whether you're looking to go into leadership, whether you're already a manager, whatever it might be, because it's a fresh perspective. I have learned the hard way, very hard way at times. I've done things wrong. I've done things that I thought I was doing right as a manager or as a leader, and then it's completely backfired. Or it's been, you know, their person's perspective that I was leading or managing has, you know, gone off the scale, and actually I've realised that was out of order. You were wrong, which I think is actually a key factor for any leader, any manager, to stand there and be able to say, do you know what? You were the one that was wrong, and admit it as well. Many people don't actually admit to their team they were wrong. One saying that always sticks in my mind is apologising or saying sorry is a weakness. No, it's not. No. If you can say sorry, it's a strength, because you have to admit that you've done something wrong and you've affected that person in a way that you should apologise for. And to be a big enough person to stand there and say sorry, I see as a strength. And I reward that in my team, and I look for that in the team that we have now and people that we look to bring on. Because if you make a mistake and you are big enough to walk in and say, look, Lee, I'm sorry, this is what's happened. I've got to hold my hands up. That's what it is. We can move on from that and we can get through it. And I think that's very, very important. And along the way throughout that journey, I've done all sorts. So we're in the cleaning industry. I was very much hands-on when we first started. It was just me and my dad. If you've looked at any of the other content that we put out there, and we do put lots of content on lots of different platforms, you'll hear me tell the story about how it was me and my dad, two big burly lads in a Citroen C2. If you know anything about a Citroen C2, they are very, very small. But that's what it was. And I was hands on the tools. And I think that is very, very important as well. Even today, again, everyone here in the office goes and does some work out on the road. They go and experience what the people on the front line, the people completing the cleaning, actually do. Because cleaning is not easy. We also bring them in the other way as well. It's good to get people that are cleaning to come here in the office and experience what the people in the office do as well. Because hard work isn't just getting your hands dirty. Many, many days I can be sat in the office, and I do sit in the office more than I used to. But many days I can be sat in the office and I can be more tired at the end of the day and think to myself, it was easier to get back on the tools. I'd rather be scrubbing someone's oven or mopping someone's floor. So it's good to know that as well. But I've done lots of things along the way. Small projects, big projects. We've cleaned in excess of 496, I think it was, student accommodation. Now that is studio apartments. We did that within 5 days, and I was project manager on that one. We've managed multiple contract sites for various different customers. I've already name dropped a few of the customers we've worked for. You know, we work for Lidl supermarkets and many others, and we're doing many, many cleans every single day. Directly to me, I mean, no, granted, these days I don't directly manage everyone that works at Vapor Clean, but I'm obviously involved in that. I directly manage managers, essentially. And I think part of managing is developing other people as much as anything else. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, sometimes I've done things right, and I'm happy when I've done things right, obviously. If I wasn't happy when I've done things right, there would be a real problem. And I can quite happily say that we've progressed people on that have maybe had no experience in the industry. You can give people a step up. I think it is overlooked too often for a career. There's an old saying, where there's muck, there's brass, and that sums up the cleaning industry. So for people that have struggled to stay consistent in a career, get into a career, find a way into management. A lot of people don't think about the fact that in cleaning, it's actually really quite straightforward to start from the bottom as a cleaning operative on the front line and work your way up, because the cleaning industry is screaming out for good people, and it always will be, because today is a little bit shunned upon, and which is a shame, but some people see scrubbing a toilet as less glamorous as so many other things. We've helped people develop on into other careers and other industries. I've helped people that have literally been homeless, and we've given them a chance. We've taken them on. I've taken them under my wing, and we've built them up. I know of one particular person that had been kicked out of his house the morning that he came for an interview, and he was open and honest with me on that one. And that's what he said. I've been kicked out. I don't know where I'm going to stay. And I took him. Obviously, I did background checks and everything else. He just fell on hard times. But I looked into him, and I took him under my wing. We found him somewhere to live, somewhere to sleep that day. And I took him on as a specialist technician. I trained him for a period of time. This was back when I was out on the road, so it was a little bit easier because I was the one that was training him. I was the one that was working with him. Now I rely on my technician team leader to do a lot of that training and things like that. But I built a rapport with him then, and he lasted for a few years with us and enjoyed every minute of it. Ultimately, in the end, he actually relocated to be with his family down in Southend, which is not somewhere we obviously cover. But it's a really nice feeling when you can give someone a chance like that and develop people on, as much as anything else. We've had another one where, and to be honest, in the cleaning industry, you do come across quite a few, but we've had one particular person who, and I can't go into too much detail because some people might figure out who that person is. They're no longer with us now, but they went back into a profession that is a very respected profession, but they'd had some major issues with drug use. They slipped down into using drugs. It was a very spiral, and they were caught and they were prosecuted for it. And again, during the interview, gave an absolutely smashing interview. Very competent person, very confident person. Never done cleaning before, but obviously the industry they'd come from was great. And then essentially at the end of the interview, I was made aware that this was their history. This was for a contract site. I obviously revealed it to the client. The client was happy as long as it was on our risk, and we were going to monitor it very closely, which, absolute respect to them. We took them on, and they were with us for about 4 years, where they obviously had to work out their probation or all of their terms of their prosecution and things. And once they'd done that, they sat different courses, and we supported them to sit the different courses they needed to get back into the industry that they were in. And again, I'm really pleased to do that, and that to me is the things that I've potentially done right. But I have done things wrong. I'm not always the most. I'll rephrase that. I've come a hell of a long way, and I've got a lot more patient. In the early days, I wasn't so patient. I had very high expectations, and I expected more. I was probably too harsh, too pushy. There's no probably about it. I was. It's as simple as that. I was. And I think that's the lessons. That's the lessons that can really be passed on. I mean, I've had arguments, and I mean full-on arguments with people that we've employed, and I've pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's just been too much. It's been out of order, and I think I've lost good people because I was over the top previously, and I have probably made some people think worse of me than is probably fair. because my emotions got the better of me. And if anything, that's the biggest piece of advice I'd say to any manager or leader is take the emotion out of it. Don't feel attacked. Typically, I think people don't necessarily consider the person. They're considering their situation, and they may be very rightly being selfish, and sometimes they have to be. And actually, again, example of doing things right. Very recently, I've had to say to a few of my team, one or two people that were leaving as well, late last year, you've got to do what's right for you. I'm lucky to say I've had some amazing people on the team, so much so they've said to me, I don't really want to leave, but I've got this opportunity. And I've said, well, you're going to be mad. You've given everything you can give here. That's the right thing for you. Take it, move on. That's your next stage. So hopefully you'll see that this podcast is a informal resource to know that you're not alone. You can obviously see that that's me. I'm going to bear all. When we've got someone sat the other side of this mic, they're going to dig a little bit deeper. We're going to give an honest opinion and things like that as well. And that's where we're going to come on to some questions in a minute posed by my team. First of all, though, I kind of posed one question to myself when I was creating my notes for this episode, which was, how does being a leader make me feel? Which is a really, really difficult question, and that I've gone back and forwards, and it's the one point on my notes here that I haven't actually answered, because I felt I'd give a better answer sitting here and actually just doing it off the cuff. The honest answer has to be, it depends on the day of the week. As simple as that. It depends on the day of the week. There will always be days where you wish someone else could take the brunt of being that leader, being that manager. And you've probably noticed by now, I flip between those two words, leader and manager. I don't believe anyone is just one. And if they are, they're doing it wrong. And that's my honest opinion. I think they're doing it wrong. Some days I think you need to be a leader, and other days I think you have to be a manager. Me as a business owner, or the MD of a reasonably large business and multiple people in there, I do have to lead more than manage. But if I neglect the management, it has consequences for other people. So how does it honestly make me feel? Some days I can be on a high and I can sit there and I've actually not even been at work that day. And I can think, my team have absolutely smashed it. That's amazing. That's brilliant. And I get that really, really good buzz of knowing I've done what is supposed to be done. Other days, though, it can be really, really painful. I think I've had it where, and it'll be interesting to see in our next episode, which is going to be our contracts manager, Ashley, who's had 30 years in the cleaning industry, and 25 of those have been managing people. It'll be interesting to know whether or not that is a different perspective from her being a manager within a large organization, or if it's very similar to me being the owner manager anyway. But I feel some people can just see you very faceless. They consider you a manager. They don't think about the person behind it. And that comes back to what I've said before about, remove the emotion from it. Don't take it personally. Because essentially, I think the majority of people, though, have their own situations going on. They need to look after themselves, deal with themselves. And unfortunately, you're the one that has to deal with that consequence. They may not be able to consider you or want to consider you as a person at that time. But that all got a bit deep. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on. Like I say, I've been provided some questions here by the team, and I'm going to go through and answer these questions and see what they are. What was your first day or first week of being a manager like? That I can't really tell you, because my route into management, it was so progressive. My first employee as such was actually my sister, who I kind of more palmed off with my dad because me and her would argue more than anything else. I suppose my second was actually when we took on quite a large project and it was overnight. So I suppose that would have been my first day, was actually looking after a team of about 30 people, I think, for one large project, which we had a contract for. So we knew we were going to have that for a period of time. And I liked it. I did. It was nice to put a team together. It was nice to work with a team. I got quite close with the team, which again kind of burnt me in the way along. It can burn you along the way when you do. But it's always challenging. Always challenging. I've learnt a lot since then. Next one. What's your favourite poison or favourite drink? I'm not a big drinker. You can see I drink tea, lots of that, but it does say on here, so my team know me very well, not tea. But I'm not a big drinker. I am a lager drinker, so I do drink that when I do drink. It's probably one of my favourites. Do have a little bit of a weak spot for a vodka and Red Bull though. I'm quite an energetic person, and once I get energy, I sort of want more of it and more of it. So yeah, Red Bull, vodka and Red Bull quite sometimes. Next question, have you always been passionate about being eco-friendly? Not as much as I am now, and actually I can feel that passion growing, but yes, it's always been on my mind. It is definitely something that people need, although they do take it a lot more seriously now than they did 5 years ago, especially in the cleaning industry. People need to take it even more seriously now. One of the reasons we liked the vapor steam technology is because you don't necessarily need chemicals. It reduces the need for a solution or a chemical, but it's grown over the years, and I think the steps forwards in the manufacturing and within the industry has also helped me develop that and my own passion for making things better as much as we can. Next one, why Eric? For those of you that don't know, I take my dog with me, who is called Eric, and he pretty much doesn't leave my side. He's not here today. We've actually shut him out in case he disrupts the filming, the recording, which I feel really guilty about. He'll probably scratch at the door in a minute. He's named Eric actually because that's what my son called him. My son chose him. When we went to pick one out of the litter, he literally crawled up onto my son's lap and he led there for the whole time we were there. I was going to pick up a different puppy, but Alfie, my son, turned around and said, no, I want this one, and he wouldn't leave off. He literally wanted Eric, and that was the one he wanted. So we ended up picking him, and he chose the name on the way home, and it just stuck. It was just one of those that stuck. So glad that it did these days, because it very much is just him. And I'm very much glad that we chose him, because actually it turned out the reason he was so sleepy and quiet was because he was actually quite poorly. So when we got him back at 8 weeks old, we had to take him down the vet within a few days and get some treatment to make sure that he survived, which he did, and it hasn't affected him. There's no long lasting effects, but I'm so glad we chose him. So next question, what made you want to start a podcast? I think I've said before, I want to try and give back, pass on my experience, my knowledge and things like that. I would have loved to have had some of the information that I've got now 10 years ago, 5-6 years ago even. So I think that's my main reason, and I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, so I think it's a good platform. What other dogs have you had? I used to have 2 Jack Russells. I've had many dogs when I was living with my mum and dad, obviously younger. We've always had dogs. We're a dog family. But other than that, I had 2 Jack Russells, Maggie and Murphy. Murphy was the same. He was always used to come with me when he was younger, but he actually got stung in the car one day and then was terrified of travelling. And he lived up to 16, despite being run over at a year old. That's a story for another day, but yes, unfortunately, I have to hold my hands up and say I was the one that ran him over. But yeah, thought the world of him. He lived up till 16 and it absolutely broke my heart the day I had to go and have him put down. So much so that I said at that point, I'll probably never have a dog again. That obviously didn't last because 18 months later, we went and bought Eric, but mainly because I missed my shadow. What does a managing director do? Well, what don't they do some days? For me, the managing director is the person that steers the ship. I'm the one that keeps pushing things forward. I'm a firm believer that if a business doesn't grow, it doesn't innovate, it will evaporate. And that's essentially what the managing director does. It's making sure that everything is going along as it should be and going in the right direction to reach those goals. If you don't have that big goal, that big growth, you're just going to stand still. And it's not going to help the people that are already in the business. And you're certainly not going to give any more chances to other people. Favourite film? Actually, my favourite film is a bit of a soppy one. It's Armageddon. And I love that film and I love the song that goes with it and everything else. I think that probably sums us up for episode 1. Thank you all very much for listening. Hopefully it's been entertaining and useful for you. Please do leave us a review, subscribe and check out what's coming up in the future. Comment and let us know what you thought, any questions you might have, any perspectives, whatever you might have. And if you can possibly share it on your socials or anywhere else to get other people listening, I would be very grateful. I'd like to be able to do this for quite some time. But obviously with everything, if we don't get the listens, if we don't get the progress with it, we won't be able to do so. So thank you all very much. And I look forward to speaking with you next week. Thank you.